Greetings. My name is Ben, aka Downsize It, and today I'm very happy to be joined by a very well-known figure in the Armada community, and that is Kelorn, from Armada Discord and Armada Discord TTS. And Kelorn, or I should say, KKA Paul, however you want me to talk to you today, I'll let that be
Either
up to
one's
you.
fine.
Why don't
I
you
don't
give
know if
everybody?
I'm well known anyway these days, but so maybe some people are starting to know me. So
Oh, I think you're pretty well known, at least in the Discord channels for sure.
yeah,
And
I that's my kind of my primary thing these days. So
yeah, well, for those that might not know you, why don't you give just a brief introduction of yourself and maybe a brief history of your experience with Armada? What got you started Armada, and how has that translated into where you are now with Armada in the Discord?
yeah, so I got started with Armada in 2019, right around the time that the SSD was being released. So my first actual tournament I went to was just a local store tournament here in Austin that I took the SSD to, and first tournament took second place, and I was like, oh, I really like this game. Before that, I was
Nice.
playing X-Wing, and X-Wing just annoyed the hell out of me because I hate green dice, and just like the evades and the idea that your opponent can just negate your attack completely is very annoying. And then if you try and roll your green dice, then they inevitably show blanks, and it's just not any fun.
I
So
had that
I
same
like,
issue with X-Wing as well because you can't plan for it.
yeah,
It's just one of it just happens, and
yeah.
well, nothing I can do about it.
And I mean, it's silly to blame wins and losses on dice, but at the end of the day, the variance aspect to it would started to just get to the point where it wasn't fun to play on a competitive level.
Right.
Whereas Armada for me just feels very deliberate, very chessy, that you have a strategy and you implement it, and if you implement your strategy, dice can make a difference, but they're not going, like, you're not going to lose. It's very difficult to go from a 400 to nothing win to a 0 to 400 loss, just because of your dice, which is kind of possible in X-Wing in a way that it's not in Armada. So
Right.
I also like the aspect of Armada that you split tournament points. So in X-Wing, if you lose a game, you get 0 tournament points.
Oh,
No matter
really?
how close the game is, the winner gets 1 tournament point and the loser gets 0. So in X-Wing, if you lose a game, it doesn't matter how close you lost it. Yes, there's MOV involved, but it does, in a sense, it just doesn't matter. Whereas in Armada, if you lose a close game, a 5-6 loss in a tournament is not a bad thing to happen. Like, I mean, in
No,
like,
absolutely not.
for we'll get into it in a minute, but I lost 2 games on day 2 and ended up in second place. Or I
Right.
said 2 games on day 1 and of LSO, and ended up in second place because both of them were 5-6 losses that were very close.
Yes.
So like, that's the aspect of Armada that I like. I like that strategic aspect that makes a difference. And so from there, I identified it as something that I wanted to try. You saw that you could try out the boxes, the trial boxes or whatever at like your local game store. But instead of doing that and trying to learn from scratch, I had recently played a little bit of X-Wing on the tabletop simulator that one of my friends had shown me how to do that. So I was like, I wonder if there's an Armada mod. And so I wandered around and found the Armada mod and found the Discord, and my first actual game of Armada was on tabletop simulator with
Really?
a guy from Canada that I really enjoyed playing with. He doesn't play as much anymore, but he showed me how to play Armada. And then later, a week or so later, I played a game with a local that I met through the Facebook group, named Ryan. He unfortunately was not able to make it to LSO, but he's done really well in the past, and he would have probably kicked all our butts.
Right.
So just as well he didn't come. But from there I played both in the store, but I also still play heavily on TTS, which over the last year or so has been really important because you haven't been able to play in the store.
Right. It's
So
been a huge asset for almost everybody around
yeah,
the world.
so that aspect of it really started to grow our community on tabletop simulator Discord, and then it and the new factions have been a huge boon to the number of people that are just wandering in looking to play Armada. And so, when I first joined the Discord, there wasn't really any leadership. It was just kind of a place that people gathered. And so after a while, we started wanting to try and run tournaments and stuff like that. And so I approached the guy who was owned the server, and he gave me mod powers just because I asked and was interested. And so from there, we started to have to be able to make channels and reorganize and do things like that, because it was very, very disorganized on the when I first joined the thing. And so I implemented a policy where we have a group of people called new player helpers that you can ping them when you join the Discord and say, hey, I want my first game, do at new player helpers, and somebody will, those people, watch for those pings, and then they can say, hey, I can come help you, in an hour, or I can come help you tonight, and give you your first game. We have a whole channel that's dedicated to new players. It's actually got your video, like I was telling you before, about
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the things in Armada. So you said you were going to update that, and whenever you do that, we'll go ahead and update that in the channel. But
Yeah, I do
it's
need to do that one of these days. For those of that know, it's probably maybe my fourth video I ever made. Back at the beginning of my channel, I did it's like a 3.5 hour
it's long.
comprehensive tutorial to Armada, and that took me about 3 to 4 days to film and put together. Reads like a bad
I
80s
believe it.
PSA video. Well, maybe on my year anniversary, maybe next January, because I
Yeah.
I think, man, I really need to just redo that. I've learned some new things to help explain things better and just for editing. But man, I don't even want to touch that beast right now. But at some point, I will update that so it's a little bit easier for new players to get into when watching it.
So, I mean, we try and strive for a community where it's very open and welcoming to new players. And then, in the middle of the pandemic, we really wanted to just kind of step things up and do more and more things. And so I approached the owner of the server, who doesn't actually play Armada anymore. I was like, hey, you're not really doing anything. Do you mind just making me an admin? He's like, I'll just make you the owner,
Nice.
as long as I can still have some distinction. So he made me the owner of the server, and he's still technically one of the mods, so he still has some power on the server. But yeah, no, technically it all belongs to me now. So from there, we've been, like, one of the cool things is that for LSO here, we were able to have a channel that I opened just for the Lone Star Open, and that you joined it, and several other people joined it, and we
Yep.
were able to meet up and have drinks and talk about our games, and it was
It,
just a cool area to be able to share things with people on the server that was specifically for that. So today I
yeah.
posted for other people that if you're going to a regional tournament, I don't want to do it for like store tournaments, because there's a lot of those that happen,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of on a weekly basis. But if you're going to a regional tournament like Nova, or LVO or LSO, where we have this weekend is going to be Texas Open, I'm happy to make a channel for you, and so you guys can have a spot where people that are on Discord can meet up and say, hey, this is me, I'm so and so, and this was the game I had, and stuff like that. Because I think that that was one of the great things about the tournament this weekend, is just getting to meet everybody again and getting to play in
Yes.
person, and that kind of stuff. And I saw that you released a video today. I wanted to watch it before we got on, to see what you had to say, but I was in a
Yeah,
meeting
I
here
probably should
till
have
like
timed that
literally
better so that
five
you could have
minutes.
had a chance to watch it before we started our interview.
But yeah, I was like, oh man. So normally the meeting that I'm in right before this, it doesn't last the full hour, and I can when I was like, oh, I'll have time to watch it in between, but it ran long, and I got off like 5 minutes before this one. You and I were scheduled to do this, and I was just like, I guess I'll watch it after. So, but no. No, like I said, I had a great time this weekend. It was great to meet you. It was great to meet the guys from Arkansas, and you putting together your channel is really growing that community where there wasn't one before.
It is. I'm very excited about that. Two guys from our area were there that I didn't even know existed in our area. I thought I knew everybody that played
Yeah,
Armada up here, but I was wrong. We got two new players now in our area. So, and
yeah,
when I
and I
first
try.
started the channel, I was the only player. No one else played. It was just me. So,
I manfully resisted choking out Aaron after our last game of the day on day two.
man, I tell you what, that double
I was
crystal
very
list
frustrated
is,
when I was very frustrated when he put himself sideways on the back of the map, and I'm like, do I just stop and take a 5-6 and just say we're done, and be I was like, no, we'll just play the game. And in the end, it really wouldn't have mattered. I hadn't done very well the on day 2, and I wasn't gonna be threatening to win or anything like that. But yeah, it was just like, oh man, really?
Well, if you want, speaking of that, let me just transition into the Lone Star
Sure.
Open itself. As I've already reiterated multiple times, I'll be doing my own recap or after action report with Social General Rob. But if you want, this might be a good time for you to go over your own after action report. Maybe if you want to just give some brief details of each game you played and who you played.
Yeah, so I played my what I call my Pravi Muni TF fleet. And so it involves a Providence that I think Irish Mad Cat said that's loaded for bear.
Yeah, and it was. Oh, wow, it was.
So I mean, my Providence is like 154 points and doesn't have the Admiral on it. So you know, it the whole idea of it is just to make it you not want to shoot at it. It has Jedi hostage, it has thermal shields, and it has invincible with ECMs. So I mean, the number of times that people actually decided to shoot at it was less than half the games that I played, because if you shoot at it, you have to commit to killing it, because just taking random pot shots at it gives you raid tokens.
Almost like a
And
Starhawk. You have to commit that you're going to go for it.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. But but there's a massive downside to shooting at it, which I love. And you know, everybody that I talk to that looks at my list is like, oh, they're just going to come up and flip Jedi hostage. I played 7 games this weekend, 7 games of Armada in 2 days, which is the most Armada I've ever played in any 2 day stretch I've ever done, and nobody flipped Jedi
Really?
hostage. Nobody even tried to flip Jedi
Really?
hostage. So
Wow.
the people that say that it's an awful card that you should never take it have never actually played it with it on the table, because it's a fantastic card. You just have to put it in the right spot. And so you know, like I then my Muni has rocket troopers and LTT and tickles, and then the hard cell is the flagship with TF, LTT and rocket troopers as well, and which was perfect, and it paid dividends because I played surprise attack twice with my hard cell facing backwards
That's
on the
crazy.
map.
You told me about that, you doing that the first time. I never even considered that for surprise attack. Just to, all right, I got to start out here and I don't want to engage with you yet. I'm just going to go the opposite direction and turn around for the later game.
Yeah. And then I took both of the tri-fighter aces. I took the hard cell prototypes, and I took a generic tri-fighter. And everybody's like, "Oh, that's just a speed bump." But you know, my first game, which we can get into the battle report, I played. So I played Robbie Caldwell in Rob We Trust from the Discord server, and he had recently gotten smashed by this list in the team tournament when large package Mac from Canada, who's kind of infamous in the all the words the sense of the word that
I,
that
I,
means.
I've seen him in the Discord, but I honestly I don't know who he is or what his impact is in
Oh,
Armada. But
he's one of those guys that is always looking for the next thing to screw with the rules. So he came up with this idea that Karnak tried to kill him over about trying to slingshot mines across the map on asteroids. But yeah, that ended up not happening. But anyway, every time you know package says something, you're like, oh crap, here we go again.
or go get
But
Karnak, make sure he's not,
yeah,
you know.
but anyway, you know, so he had this list where it was a trench list, and the whole idea of trench was to use it for squads. So he had a
Mhm.
recusant that had expanded hangar bays and boosted comms, and then 2 hard cells and just a huge mob of like 12 squadrons. And you know, the whole idea was that you murder people with the squads and then hammer them with the Patriots fist.
Right.
And um, and I was able to, with my 4 squads and the absolutely crazy flak ability between the LTT and the BE2 rocket troopers, I won. I killed all his squads. He turned his recusant in, and I blew up the recusant for an 8-3 win. So you know, like, just because you have 4 squads to somebody else's million doesn't mean that you can't win,
Right.
and you can't win the squad fight. So you just got to be careful, and you just got to play deliberately and take advantage. We were playing asteroid tactics, and you know, the Exogorths did damage to his squadrons as well as mine. I was perfectly willing to fight on the Exogorths because all of my squadrons except the generic had scatter. So yeah, I just said, okay, well, I'm going to play the objective that doesn't give him any points, and we're just
You
going to
could
go
almost
for
say
it.
that your squads were more expendable than his because they weren't at central tier list, I imagine.
No, they're not. They're there
Yeah.
to protect me and to at least have a standstill of a squad fight. And so from there, I went on to play my next game against Chris from Dallas, and he was a great guy. That we again I picked Asteroid Tactics against him, but this time I was facing into the corner, and so he said, "Oh, I'll face into the corner," and in doing so, he ran away from all the asteroids, and then he realized as soon as he deployed, "Oh, I just negated my whole." The
Oh,
whole idea of being a second player,
right.
and so he
Yeah.
promptly, I activate my first ship and churn into the corner, and he said, "No, I'm just going to turn." And so my ship was going this way, and his ship's ended going this way. Some squads died, and that was slightly in his favor, and that was it. That was the whole game. We shot at each other a bunch, but nothing actually happened. We just kind of flew past each other in the night, and it ended up as a as a 5-6.
Nice.
So I was like, hey, whatever, I don't care. And so then the third game, I played against Richard, who was a newer player in the Dallas area, and his Starhawk double CR90 list. And he was very aggressive with the CR90s. He got them out in front of the Starhawk, and between the raids and the Muni and whatnot, I was actually able to kill both of the CR90s. I was like, okay, well, I've got a comfortable win here. And then I was like, okay, we'll go to work on the Starhawk because he had finally kind of trundled into range. And we played. God, what did we play? I'm trying to remember which. I was first on every game I played. My 5-point bid was always let me choose, except for against Aaron, and he chose to be second with his pickles. And I can't remember what objective we played now. Anyway, my ships were able to raid the Starhawk into oblivion and just pound it eventually. And I got, oh, that's what happened. So I ended up with my Providence double arcing his Starhawk, with his Starhawk double arcing my Providence, and he salvoed me. Or I attacked him with an APT hit, got the APT off. He salvoed me. The crit was coolant discharge, which says
Oh,
you can only shoot a ship once per turn.
yeah.
He'd already declared the salvo,
Yeah.
and so could no longer shoot me for the rest of that
Yeah.
turn. And
That's the
it
interesting
was,
thing about when it comes to salvo or the timing of spend defense token step.
yeah,
You spend the tokens there, but the reactions happen later, so you might
yeah.
actually not get what you actually spent the defense
Which
tokens
is why
for.
it's really important that you do things like have your crit effects go off before you resolve damage,
Yes.
or
Yes.
and crit effects go off before you shoot. Because
Yes.
if you get the one there, you lose a die. Your salvo loses a die. So yeah, doing things in order is very important there. And so I felt terrible, but I don't think my Pravi wouldn't have died that turn, and I was able to get it out of the double arc. So I mean, at the end of the day, would it have died? It would have been certainly in a lot more danger than it ended up being. But yeah, so with that, I killed the Starhawk, and he was tabled. So that ended up as the 10-1 my way, which gave me the indescribable honor of playing Trenton in his SSD list.
The
That was just.
SSD, yes. Which I'm sure most people, if
Can
they're
I
watching the
swear on
live
this,
stream, would have
or
seen that.
can
Go
I
ahead.
swear
No,
on
it's
this or no?
fine.
Okay, yeah, he was the big dick slapping around with the.
He
with
was. I mean, he was
it
slapping
was very
everybody
phallic.
around, and nobody was expecting it.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking with Karnik the day before, and we were eating some food, and I said, I've been to a couple to a tournament here, and I looked at everything on the table. I said an SSD would smash all this stuff, and he said, yeah, but if you ever run into a squads, or there's a whole bunch of lists that just murder it right now. And I was like, yeah, but if you get the matchups, who cares?
Right.
The
Yeah.
SSD can still be, and so then he shows up with an SSD and just like goes, oh, we're just gonna get up into second, so
Well, I mean,
so I ended up faced.
it took up until the last match, Matt, to finally figure out how to beat it. I mean, I know
Well, I
you
mean,
got the close loss.
Yeah.
And a
So
couple other ones were really close, but
yeah, so that was the segue into the last game of day two, which again
yep.
was a 5-6 loss for me. And I showed a surprise attack, put my my guy backwards, and did a whole kind of loop around. And so by turn 5, I was actually able to shoot with the hard cell. And so, the Pravi went in and double arced it and stripped all and was able to do enough, put enough pressure on it with the squadrons and everything that I stripped his defense tokens. And so once his braces were gone and his shields were gone off the front 3 hull zones, then he had enough raid tokens between from that the Muni was shooting 3 red dice and 3 black dice out the side arc with TF and a concentrate fire dial, and the hard cell was shooting 3 red dice and 3 black dice with a concentrate fire dial out the front.
That's just
So in
insane
one,
how much that commander can just pump up separatists,
it,
man.
and so in one turn I did 14 damage cards
Oh,
to turn 5. I did 14 damage cards to the SSD,
wow.
and so he was able to repair, I think, 6 damage cards over the course of the game, and ended up with 21 damage cards at the end of turn 6.
So 1 point.
1 point, one point of damage.
Oh.
And
So
and so
obviously I didn't see it. I'm actually curious. I remember hearing about that now that you mention it, that it wasn't from you, it was just somebody else that was watching, forget who, that it was 1 point away from dying. And I just was wondering, I wonder where your ships were and if you could have maybe gotten a ram to get just knock it out.
So I was dancing out at long range with the Muni
Right.
and this hard cell because I didn't want them to get deleted by the front arc of the SSD.
Right.
So that really wasn't an option. But it was just very close. I mean, I did a little bit more damage. I honestly, the immunity stayed out of range for too long. I kind of had the immunity in a spot that in retrospect wasn't that great, but it was the first time I'd ever played surprise attack and the first time I'd ever tried to do the turn backwards thing. So I was kind of just playing it by ear,
yeah,
and doing the best I could, and I was happy with how it turned out. I just needed 1 more damage, and that would have been that. But yeah, his girlfriend came over at the end of that game and handed me a beer, so it was all better.
There you go. Right.
But at the end of the day, I knew I had already made top 8, so
right.
me tabling him and killing that SSD didn't matter. So because we were all of our points were going to reset.
We're going to reset
for day 2, so it just didn't matter one way or the other. So it was a very collegial game. I was not upset at all. I knew I'd made top 8. I actually got was the second player on day 1.
Yeah, I think you were 2. Second for the first day rankings. Yeah.
And so I was totally happy with that. And so my stated goal to myself, I was talking with Large Package before, when we were talking about what should I bring, and he said, "What's your goal?" I said, "My goal is to make day 2." And so I made my goal. And so on Saturday, I was like, okay, I've already made my goal. I'm just going to come in and do the best I can, and we'll see what happens. And so the game 1 of day 2, I was playing against Caribbean Ninja from he actually is on the TTS Discord.
With the absolutely badass looking Chimera, by the way.
Oh God!
Please, Caribbean Ninja, I want to pay you to paint mine.
did he tell you that he hand painted?
Yeah,
that
hand painted
Chimera?
It, and all the little, his detail incredible.
So for those of you guys that didn't see it, guys, he's got a inverse. So he painted his Chimera white, and then hand painted a black Chimera on top of it.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'll post a picture here so that they can see what it looks like.
It's
absolutely incredible.
Gorgeous. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, so we're playing this, and he's got Onager, ISD, and a Gazanti. And so I was like, so I'm just going to try and shove the Pravi into the front of the Onager and keep the hard cell out of the way. And so he is like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use my Onager to shoot through your Pravi with Vermati and get an extra die shooting at your hard cell. And so the one shot, he rolled 4 red dice, didn't get an accuracy. Rolls his black dice that gets okay damage, not great, and then rolls in 1 more red dice that turns up as an accuracy, blocks my evade, and it dies. And I was just like, so it's really unfortunate because that hard cell had a double arc on the front of the ISD that was already in trouble. The Muni had a double arc on the ISD that was already in trouble that had a bunch of raid tokens on it. If those two ships shoot the ISD, it's probably dead.
Yeah.
So the ISD.
But your
is
commander
dead.
was on the hard cell, right?
The hard cell. The commander was on the hard cell.
So you lost. So once that meant all the raids are like, well, who cares now?
Well, I mean, they still prevent you from
right. Still raid, but you don't
useful.
get your damage that you wanted.
Right. So at that point I was like, okay, well, I'm not winning this. I was able to kill the ISD, but he tabled me because my ships got stuck in front of the onager for too long. And it was just really that one dice, and we talked about it at the time, is like that one dice came up as an accuracy, and I was like, that's the whole game right there.
Yeah.
And so I had a plan, I executed it, and we talked about dice at the beginning of this interview. Sometimes they make a difference.
Sometimes it does.
But
the nice thing is, though, it's rare where a single dice will determine an outcome in Armada. Most of the time, you can plan around good and bad dice rolls with your fleet build.
Right. So I took the 2-9 loss there, and ended up facing the mirror match. So another guy named Paul. So we had Paul versus Paul. He was playing TF. I was playing TF. And again, I picked his surprise attack because I had 1 point bid on him, and I just was going sideways on my board edge, and he with my hard cell going backwards, and he just had to come across the table at me, and he got my hard cell to 1 health with a long range shot from the Patriot Fist with a really nice roll, but it was just 1 damage short. And then he ended up in a double arc of the Providence that I rolled. Had a decent roll, and but it wasn't enough to. So the first roll goes off, strips all his shields and stuff, and then I rolled the second arc, and it was a good roll, but it wasn't quite enough. And so this is when I had leading shots. So I was like, do I do leading shots? I was like, okay, I kind of need to. Rolled the leading shots and did like 2 extra damage, and was enough to kill it.
Yeah.
And so his recusant dies, and his Admiral was on the recusant.
Right.
And so at that point, I clean up his squads, and he had Watt Tambor on his Munificent, just fantastically tanky Munificent, because it just strips shields and gets huge amounts of engineering from the other guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he was able to do that, and I did a bunch of damage to his Munificent, but I think the most it had was like 3 damage cards, and was able to repair all 3 of them with Watt Tambor. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty much done. I was like, okay. So that was an interesting one, but that ended up being a 7-4 win for me. But at that point, I played your buddy Aaron with his pickle list, and I said something about it earlier. I picked Solar Corona, which made me have to deploy first, and he just said, okay, well, I hate to do this, but I'm going to deploy along my board edge and just fly along my board edge. And I was like, okay, well, I have 2 options here. I can do nothing, slow to speed 0, and just say we're going to take a 5-6.
Right.
Or I can try and go in. And so I tried to be fast enough to get in front of the front one, because you got to get in front of the front of the 2.
Right.
If you want to try and try and stop them and get in a spot. And so I was trying to stay out of range of the back one and shoot at the front one, and my Providence ended up in like 2 millimeters, like just a teeny tiny. We had Karna come over and measure it, because it was just the tiniest little bit that was in the arc of, or in the range of the back one. And so when I thought I was only going to be taking 1 shot, which the Provi can take all day long, I don't care, I ended up having to get shot by 2 side arcs of 2 MC80s with Akbar. And the first time that happened,
it's not fun receiving that. Yeah. I've received it many times over practice. It's not fun.
But like I said, I thought I was out, and because of the way I was maneuvering, and it turned out that I wasn't. And you know what? Yeah, those are tough. So I ended up killing one of them, I came. I had one of them on like 1 health by the end of the game, and it was just short of killing it. And the other one was fine. But yeah, he tabled me, and because I decided, okay, I'm gonna make a game, because I wasn't gonna win the tournament,
right?
Because I had lost the first game so badly, and so I was just like, I'm gonna play a game rather than sit here and do nothing So yeah, I mean, it was a conscious decision. In retrospect, I was like, okay, well, what could I have done? You know, he had, I think, advanced gunnery, which is death if you want to, if you try
And
and take that
contested
against
outpost. Yeah.
in contested outpost.
Yeah.
In retrospect, had I taken contested outpost, he would have had to fight me,
That's
and he would have
true.
had to set
Yeah.
up in the board in a way that he would not have been able to go along his board edge because he would have had to be on the station.
Yep.
So in retrospect, had I taken contested outpost, I could have, and he wouldn't have had a deployment, you know, with the Solar Corona deployment advantage on me. I chose Solar Corona because I didn't want to give him points, but in retrospect, it allowed him to deploy in a way that I couldn't do anything about it. So, so like I said, in thinking more about it, and you know, hindsight is 2020, as they always say. What I should have done is taken contested outpost, forced him to come towards me and allow me to line up an area where I know he's going to be and where he has to go,
And then try to
and then
jam him in
fight
the
him,
front arc.
and then
Yeah.
jam him in a front arc. And if I
Yeah.
can get my Pravi double arced in the front arc of one of his
One of his
MC80s, it's all
MC80s.
over.
Then yeah,
It's all
you'll.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never going to survive. And if I have to eat the side arcs of the other one, I don't care, because I've blown one to smithereens. So, again, like I said, it's one of those things that you're like, oh, it's the 7th game you've played in 2 days. Yeah,
The mental.
maybe you did.
The mental fatigue and fortitude that is required. I mean, nobody obviously has been preparing for this type of gameplay because of COVID, of course.
Yeah,
I have never even experienced this before. This many games. I didn't play
yeah.
that many at Gen Con because I didn't make
I mean,
the
I
cut.
played in tournaments before, but I've never played a 2-day tournament that has 7 games. I mean, it's
Yeah,
insane.
it's meant
It's
the mental.
insane.
You gotta have mental conditioning just to be able to
Oh yeah.
stay focused all the way through. Even the last game of the first day, I was exhausted, and then
I'm
the
not gonna
next.
lie, Ben. I really wanted to play you in that last game.
So did
I really, if I really
I
wanted, I
thought we were
really
going to
want.
get matched up because I
I thought
thought
we
we
were
had
too.
I thought our point difference, because we were both near the bottom. My
Yeah.
first 2 games I didn't play well at all, so I thought we were going to get matched up. That's what I was hoping for. That
Yeah,
I wanted to play with you. So.
I wanted to blow your ISDs up so bad.
Yeah.
I wanted your ISDs to have like 10 raid tokens or 8 raid tokens between them.
I'll go into more detail with Rob when I go through that. But I played the other Paul twice.
Yeah.
Heavy raid presence that I had to deal with.
See, the thing about, and you beat him twice, right?
No. So the first game we played, he beat me 3-8. And it was, he played a fantastic game, and I made several mistakes that he exploited to perfection. Our second game, though, which was the last game, Game 7, I tried a very unorthodox strategy and was able to basically negate his advantage with the raids, and was able to beat him on that one. And
so the difference between his list and my list is that his list is it's a fantastic hammer.
Yeah, it's a gun. It's lots of guns.
Yeah.
But nothing that can actually take a hit.
My list is an anvil.
Oh yeah,
and I will smash you against it.
I was actually thinking about it the night after we got the results, and knowing that I had made the cut. I was thinking, man, I need to start. I started actually looking, just kind of scouting out everybody's list that had played. I saw your Providence and what its loadout was like. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do against this? And I still don't know what I would have done. I probably actually would have tried to ignore it and just gone after you Munificent and the hard sell, but because I know I can't kill it because
it's hilarious.
Shields, and I don't have dice mitigation after I roll as far as adding dice with my list. So I knew.
So what's hilarious, Ben, is that on day 1, I did not take a card out of my damage deck until the 3rd game.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because the first game, I was able, it was all about the squads, and the only damage that got done was to Robbie's Recusant, and he didn't even shoot my ships for the most part, because it was all about those squads getting things off, and I was able to lock down his bombers, so he never got to bomb me, other than like a couple of them on turn 1 or turn 2. And The second game we did this, so there was no damage from
Yep,
anything for
right.
anybody. And then so that the third game was the first time that I took a damage card out, and it was because of a ram. And so then so yeah, I mean, like I said, people look at that Pravi and they just don't want to shoot it. Now I've played a bunch of different versions of it. I've tried it with only the thermal shields. I've tried it with the Admiral on it. As soon as you put the Admiral on it, everybody wants to shoot it.
It becomes a target. Yeah.
Because they're like, okay, I'm willing to shoot it because it's 174 points or
Right.
more than that. It's it's 180 points. And once you kill it, the Admiral goes away.
Yes.
Whereas with the Admiral on the hard cell, and I fly the hard cell in a way that it's difficult with Sans Onager to kill it.
Well, you almost play it like old school flotilla play back before they made that
Oh,
change where you can.
Yeah.
And hard cells are great for that because not only are they fast, they're tough.
Yeah, but the nice thing
a small
about
base hull, they are hard to kill.
But the nice thing about that hard cell is it's got 3 red dice in the front.
Yes.
So you can
can
clean
snipe
up.
it.
So you use it as a cleanup ship on turn 5 and turn 6.
Yeah.
And if they've got raid tokens, you throw 3 red dice with a Confire. You've got 2 black dice plus another black dice, 3 reds and 3 blacks.
That's a victory one.
That's a victory one at close range that you can do from long range.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
it's insane. It's awesome.
And it's just not vulnerable. At long range, it's just not vulnerable with the token suite. So like I said, that one Onager shot that killed it was, I think, was the really frustrating one, because other than that, I was like, okay, well, nobody really can get at it because it's so far back. But it was just a the list was solid. I was very happy with my play, other than a couple of different things, especially in that game 7. I enjoyed the tournament very much. I would I wish I'd gotten to play you. That would have been a lot of fun.
I'd actually I didn't realize you were leaving that night. I'd sent you a message because Rob from Canada, he said, hey, I want to play. You want to try to get up butt crack of dawn and just get a quick game in? I was like, yeah, that'll be great. And I remember you said I wanted to play you, so I messaged you, but you said I already left. I was like, what?
Yeah, I had to take my mom to the airport at 5:30 in the morning on Sunday back down here in Austin, so there wasn't any way I could stay. But yeah, no, we'll get a game in on TTS.
Yes,
don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking at what I'm gonna play next week.
Are you going to the Texas Open?
It's looking like I might be able to. So I've been trying to finagle things with my wife and my in-laws to watch the kids and stuff. So I might be able to go. But I don't think I'm going to play the same list. I think I'm going to play something different.
Try something different.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things is that there was only 2 lists out of the 18 that had over 100 points of squads.
Yeah, that was interesting. It's one of those where I was expecting more, especially no Sloan at all. I was 100% ready to face Sloan.
There will
be. What am I going to do now?
There will be a Sloan list, at least one, maybe 2, and at least 1 double Onager list at Texas Open. I can virtually guarantee it.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to Texas Open, make sure you know how to deal with Sloan, and make sure you know how to deal with double Onager. And I would bet that now that that somebody will have seen somebody do well with an SSD, somebody's going to try and bring an SSD.
Someone's probably going to watch Krabik's video of his tournament report and be like, I'm going to do Krabik's SSD.
And I will tell you that if you do that, you're probably not going to be happy at the end of the day, because if you get matched up against double Onagers, or you get matched up against Sloan,
yeah,
you're in for a rough day.
SSD's kryptonite, because you just drain its defense tokens in its open season.
So yeah, no, like I said, I think Texas Open is going to be a very different tournament in terms of makeup of lists.
Yeah.
So
there's going to be some repeat players, right? Because some of the people we saw, other than you, that we saw at the
Alan. Alan and Ian are running TXO.
Okay.
Alan is Mercier on the Discord, and I don't think Ian's on the Discord at all. Robbie will be there. Robbie Caldwell. The guy that I played in the first game on day 1.
And by the way, just for you guys, I mentioned it in my shout out video, but that's in Robbery Trust, and he's the one that's putting together those really nice
mats.
Mats.
God, they're gorgeous.
And whenever he gets his Kickstarter going, he's going to let me know, and I'll give him a shout out so you guys know to go there. But just want to let people know that he's the one that designed that.
Oh, and you should also mention that Robbie has had cancer for the last 18 months and was declared cancer free the week that we had LSO. So he was there, and it was really good to see him, and to know that he is finally out of that. So he played a whole bunch of matches on TTS from the hospital after going through chemo, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So,
Yeah, I had no idea about that until I found
well,
out when
that
I
was why
got there. And
he was shaved.
right, yeah, and
So
it was one of those, again, just
it's a great
incredible to
community.
be able to have such a good community and to be able to finally meet in person and just
Oh
to
yeah,
get together and play together. So
yeah. So yeah, like I said, I had a great time. I thought that all of my opponents were great. It was it was great seeing Karnak there and getting to meet him in person, because I talked to him all the time on Discord, and so he, it was great to be able to meet up with him, and to actually forge like a personal relationship, other than that somebody that
that you're
online
just chatting with. Yeah,
that you're just chatting with. So, he ran a really tight ship of a tournament. I've been slowly doing some judging for the online tournaments that we've been doing, and so watching him in the way he judged, it was like, okay, those are some things that I can emulate, in doing and
right.
being a judge in the future. So, like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping to get to see you at some more tournaments. So I mean, you're not that far away. You're definitely within driving distance. So,
Well, I will say this. I know there. I mean, there is a little bit of a behind the scenes stuff with the LSO and the Texas Open. We don't have to get into that. My main thing was just it's because they're back to back weekends.
yeah,
Um, that's just
and
a
that
bit of a
was
long drive for 2 weekends in a row for
yeah,
me to be able to pull off.
and that was never intentional. Like that was
Yeah,
there was never
it was
anything
just kind of an
malicious about
accidental
that.
thing that happened. I think.
And the way that it worked out, I was, it was much easier for me to make LSO because of the way my wife's
Yeah,
work schedule is. So I knew I was going to be able to make LSO. TXO was going to be always the more difficult one, even though it's a single day,
right.
instead of a 2 day. I always knew that TXO was going to be more difficult because my wife is actually working that weekend. So but like I said, I'm finagling,
Right.
trying to get things
Well, I hope you
in
get
a
to be
way
able
that
to
I can get.
make it because
Yeah.
I'm talking with Alan right now, and we're gonna try myself and Social General Rob to do a live stream on Saturday,
Oh,
and
that so you guys might commentate on like the live stream match?
yeah, we're gonna try. We're gonna for sure do a live. He's gonna send us all the lists once you guys register, and we're
Hmm.
gonna do a breakdown of all the fleets that are being featured, and then see if I can't do some sort of like a live stream of the live stream with Rob and do like a color commenting on the top table. So
Oh, that would be fantastic.
yeah,
Like
we're gonna
that would be.
work. I've never done live streaming, so I'm gonna be doing some experimentation this week, and to try to work out the behind the scenes logistical details, and for the first time, give it a shot for this Saturday.
Yeah, and one of the things that I as advice, when you're
Yes,
doing
please,
the streaming,
because I've never done this
um,
before.
is don't just talk about what they're doing. Talk about why they might be doing what they're
Mm,
doing,
yeah,
because and be like, okay, well, does this make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, is there a reason that it doesn't make sense to us right now that it might make sense in the future? Because I mean, and that's the
well,
great
because
thing about
Armada's
Armada.
about planning ahead, turns ahead. It's not about in.
Mhm.
There is some in the moment stuff. But that's what I love about it. You have to plan. It's like chess, like you said. You have to plan several moves ahead, several turns ahead,
Yeah,
to see your plan then come to fruition by the end of the game.
yeah. No, like I said, I think it's great, and I really hope that you guys can do the more, like the more live streams that and stuff that, especially commentated live streams that we can see. That just increases the community. I played one of the games I played with on the team competition, the team tournament on TTS that we just concluded. That was actually run by the Italian group, is who put that together. It was all international. We
Mm-hmm.
had 20 teams of 4 players each. 80 people were playing in this tournament, and one of the teams I played was the French white team, and the leader of the French team, white team, he has his own YouTube channel, and he would record the games, and then he would send a compressed version of the game over to me, and he asked me to commentate on my own match. So after the game, I was able to so it was like a 2.5 hour game that was compressed to 30 minutes, and so I was able to do 30 minutes of commentary on why I did what I did,
Well, that's really cool.
and
It's kind of like an after
and
action report as you're
yeah, exactly.
discussing about what happened.
And talk about what happened at each point of the game, why I made the decisions I made, what I thought were mistakes later on, and stuff like that is is what really is what that's high quality content, and
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the kind of content that people are sitting at work and wanting to watch a YouTube video. That's what they want to see, is not just watching a game, but watching people talk about what's happening in that game. So the more of that you can do, the better, in my opinion.
Well, we will definitely we're going to give it a shot. Might, get the logistics put together. And for when it does happen, just do ask people ahead of time to bear with myself as I work through the technical glitches
You'll get better at
they're going
it.
to happen. The technical
Yeah,
glitches will happen, but we'll work through them as they happen. So,
for sure.
one last thing I would just like to ask for those that are interested in maybe exploring competitive play with Armada. You gave myself and Aaron some really good advice when we met up the night before. We had some drinks and just introduced ourselves and talking about how it's okay to call for a judge. It's okay to basically, I'll let you do it, but like just for first-time competitive players, if they're going to their first event, they might have some trepidation. What's like maybe the top 3 points of advice you'd give to a first-time competitive player going to their first tournament?
The first thing I would say is have realistic expectations when you go to your tournament. The first tournament you go to have fun. I mean, it doesn't, and I'm not, and go whether you're going to a store tournament or you're going to, LSO or TXO or something like a premier level tournament, or you're going to Worlds or the tie-in tournament to Worlds at one of the big conventions. Go expecting to have fun your first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because anything more than that, and you have a you'll have potential to be just really disappointed, and that might lead to you not going to another tournament.
Right.
Keep in mind that when you go to a tournament, you're going to play a list for 3 games, 4 games, 7 games. So play something that's, especially play something one that and play something that's simple, because the more complex your list, the more interactions that you have to remember. By the time you get to game 3, get to game 4, get to game 7, you're going to start missing triggers. You're going to start missing things and be like, oh, can I go back? And in a tournament setting, they're not going to let you go back. That's not a friendly match. You're not playing a friendly match at your game store. You're playing a tournament match. So if you
Right.
forget to put an onager token down, you don't get to put it down,
And then you won't be able to take
shoot
your
it again.
shot next turn. Right.
So play something that's simple. Play something that, Aaron came to his first tournament with an Akbar list, and he played something really simple. And yet, I did not point this out to him, but he forgot to add, he declared Akbar, but forgot to add the dice once.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him.
And it is one of those things I learned, that it is important to make sure that you don't, because you are playing competitively.
Yeah.
I'm so used to on my channel, we try to remind each other and talk things through because I like to be instructive.
And that is exactly
but on
what to do when
competitive
you're
play,
playing
it's
casual.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind is when you're done with your game and you're watching somebody else, don't say anything.
Right.
If you're spectating, so the rules for tournament for spectators are that if you see something that is done, that is a rule that is being broken, that is not just a missed opportunity, you can take it to the judge. But
Right.
you are not allowed to say anything at the match, and you're not allowed to bring up oh, you should do something like that. Those are things that are against the rules and can have you removed from a tournament venue. So
Right.
these are things that that we do all the time when we're having social matches and we're trying to get people to get better at Armada, that you can't do at tournaments.
Right.
And when you think about it, it makes sense, because you don't want to give an advantage to somebody that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah, because that would be unfair if one player is basically
Exactly.
playing by themselves and another player has someone else giving them coaching advice. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be an unfair advantage.
Just like in a chess game, like it's considered,
yes.
The etiquette is that you don't tell somebody you should try and do something in a chess game. That's rude. So it's the same thing here. And then the last point that we talked about, you brought it up, is, I posted a picture of Karnak literally standing on a table.
To talk about that because I thought it was hilarious, but apparently it caused some controversy.
Yeah, I thought it was a hilarious photo of him standing on a chair, leaning over a table.
I remember it in the moment when it happened. So
and the best part of that photo is Matt. Matt is the guy that ended up winning the tournament. He's got the green hat on in the photo,
And
and he's
there,
sitting there staring. He's
staring
staring
right.
intently at the board. But in the photo,
It looks like
the
he's looking
angle
at.
is such that he's like so straight on looking at Karnak's butt. I mean,
Yeah,
just straight
yeah.
on, like admiring that butt in the uniform that he had on that day. It was
Yeah.
great. But I posted it on Facebook, and there was a whole bunch of people that got really upset about, oh, why are you being so anal about it? This is why I don't go to tournaments. But they were completely missing the point.
Yeah.
The reality of that call was that they both thought there wasn't a shot, and they called the judge over to make sure that they weren't wrong.
Yes.
So they both said, I don't think there's a shot there, but
It's high level
we're
play.
gonna call.
You want to just make
we're gonna
sure.
call the judge over and make sure.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's what they did. And so there wasn't any malice in it. There wasn't anybody winning or losing because of that one judge call. I mean, I called the judge over twice, in the match with Aaron, like I talked about, that it was just a couple of millimeters. Yep. I called the judge over because that's what you do. And we were like, we can't tell. And in one call that even Karnak wasn't able to make one call, and he said, hey, I can't, this is too close, I can't make one of this call in one of my games. You need to roll. Do you want hits or crits? Who's first
just
player?
Roll it off. Yeah.
And so we rolled it off, and that ended up being against me. I took hits and it was a crit. So these things are.
It's sometimes it's difficult with a picture.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not, because like this,
the context
again, this was my, you don't have the context, and if you're not familiar with the tournament environment, and just from my perspective, guys, just to let you know, this was, other than Gen Con in 2017, I really don't count that because that was so long ago. This was my first competitive context, and I had some trepidation. I thought, man, I really hope I don't meet any jerks across the board, or it's going to just be anal all the time. But it wasn't. Everybody was pleasant. It was high-level competitive play. And the times that in my matches, my opponents called a judge a couple of times, or we agreed mutually to call a judge, and I did as well once. And they were all just for instances where we were measuring. It was ultra close, and it was at that point where we didn't want to be like, well, I'll just give it to you because it was an important part of the game. And we wanted a neutral arbiter.
And there's another aspect to it. The tables that we were playing on, which was probably not apparent from a lot of the pictures,
we had space-time continuum, space warping going on.
Yeah. So you would have a ship on the ridge between the two tables, and it would like move.
Yeah, and it's
on
like,
its own,
and it's like bobbling like a seesaw a little bit.
Yeah, and so you would get these instances where if it was on three legs this way, it was in. If it was on three legs this way, it was out. And it was like, okay, well, this is what you have a judge for.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
That's kind of my final point that I made to you guys is never be afraid to call for a judge.
Right.
Even if you think you're wrong, even if you think neither of you are wrong, call for a judge. That's why they're there. He is maintaining the legitimacy of his event by telling you what the rule is.
Right.
And so, you're not doing anything wrong by calling a judge. You're not calling your opponent a liar by calling for a judge.
And that was never even the case on any of the times that happened with my games. Exactly. It was just a matter, we just couldn't figure. It was just came down to we just couldn't figure it out. So,
but new players will tend to believe that they're afraid to call for a judge because they think they're calling their opponent a liar or something like that. That's not true. Yeah. When you call for a judge, all you're doing is trying to get a neutral arbiter, a neutral third party to tell you one way or the other that doesn't have a bias of what the board state is, or what the rule for that card is. And even judges make mistakes. Karnak and I talked about something on one of my cards, and we misread the card and said, oh, we haven't been playing that right. It turned out that we had been playing it right. We just misread the card in the moment because it was the fourth game of day 4,
and we were all exhausting.
Yep. And it made a difference because I didn't end up taking the cards, the tokens off of Ruin Hako onto my ship that could have made a difference in keeping my Providence alive against the Super Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
And it's little things like this that this is why judges are there. They're there to help things. And again, they might end up being wrong, but they're the judge, and they're the one that the call for that day is what that judge says.
And I don't remember an instance ever happening, I mean, never during any of my games, and even just observing the other tables, where there was any contention. It was all
No.
just in good faith and in good spirit
Yeah.
and good competitive play.
Yeah, and like I said, most of the time you call for a judge, it's for a measurement. And it's for
Yeah,
something that you guys are not able to determine yourself. You're trying to determine what's in arc and what's not in arc,
yeah.
and these kinds of things. And there's no malice in it. It's literally just a matter of trying to play the best game possible.
Well, I do would like to say, just as the final point when it comes to competitive play for new people, I was new and I had my preconceptions, and my preconceptions were wrong. And I was very happy and pleased with how welcoming in person the competitive Armada
Oh
community
yeah.
was that I met there. And it's giving me the bug. I fully intend to attend more tournament events now in the future, because my main trepidation was I'm not going to name other game system names, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Other game systems have really bad
Fork
reputations that are, and they are earned. But my experience with Armada, it wasn't that way at all. It was a
Yeah.
very pleasant experience. So
I've every all the Armada tournaments that I've been to, store tournaments, Prime, the LSO, all of them have been very collegial. I mean, very everybody wants everybody else to have a good time. Nobody wants to be a dick. Nobody wants to win just on a rules technicality. They want to play the game correctly. They want to get it
yeah,
right, and they want to play a clean game. They want to beat you correctly. I
yeah,
mean,
not beat you because of good gameplay, not because,
yeah.
like you said, as a rules technicality or something. So
Yeah, and I mean, the great thing about Armada is that what did Karnak say? It's a perfect game played by imperfect people.
yes.
And it's and I we can debate whether or not Armada is a
Well,
perfect game
the
or not,
semantics aren't
but
important. The spirit of the comment
yeah,
is remains true.
yeah. So, but like I said, you do the best you can, that and one of the things I really enjoyed hearing from him is that at the beginning of the thing is he said, I want you to play quickly and efficiently. If I think that you're slow playing, I'm going to come and tell you that you can't do that. Because and what he meant by that is that he doesn't want to see you going over there and taking 5 minutes to move every one of your 10 squadrons.
Yeah,
He wants to see a game that moves along. And yeah, and what I always said, and my version of what he was trying to say is, if you need to take a few minutes to determine what the maneuver tool is going to be for like the important move of the game,
then
take
take
all
it.
the time you need.
Yes, but
Like,
not for
take the
every
time you
move.
need,
Yeah,
but don't do that for every move.
yeah,
I mean, on turn one, don't take 5 minutes to determine where your speed one ship is going to go. I
yeah.
mean, let's move it along. We know,
And the thing is, I don't think any of that happened ever. And he actually mentioned that at the end, that he never had
yeah,
to worry about
yeah.
calling people on for slow play.
But it was great to hear him say that at the beginning to set the
Yeah,
tone, and be like, I'm not going to let you do that, so don't let me catch you do it. And like I said, you I've played with people who intentionally play slow. I've played with people that play fast. But when you play with somebody that you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and then you turn it over to them, and then you're just standing there for 5 or 10 minutes before it's your turn again. It gets frustrating. So like I said, don't be that guy.
right.
Don't be that guy. If you need time to learn how to play the game, do that. When you're practicing, and you can and people will help you. But when you're at a tournament, make sure that you're going to play efficiently
Well,
and play a
just
list. And if you have trouble with it, play a list that you can play efficiently.
right.
If you're
Yeah,
new at the game, don't bring 15 squadrons. I mean, play something that you can play and play efficiently.
yeah. That is very true, and I'm very happy that I did take 2 months to practice my lists, and brought a commander and a build on a starter story that I've been comfortable with for years now. I
Yeah,
can't imagine trying to do this my first. I was nervous enough as it was, especially the first couple
yeah,
games. If I wasn't playing something that I was intimately familiar with, that would have been a nightmare.
yeah. And I talked to a couple people where they're like, yeah, so how many times have you played this? So like, yeah, I play it 10 or 15 times to practice. And some of them looked at me like, why? Wow, how many you get that many games in? Well, I mean, that's what TTS is great for,
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
you can get games all the time. But yeah, you like I said, play something you know how to play. Even if you think that something might be better, play what you'll do better with a list that
you're
is
familiar
less
with.
good, but you know how to play.
Yes. Yeah. Well, as before we sign off here, do you have any final notes you want to say to anybody on my channel, maybe regarding the Discord and TTS and the community there? I don't know how many people on my channel are on.
Come join our Armada TTS Discord. We everybody, there's lots of people playing games. We've got tournaments that happen 3 or 4 times a year. The tournaments are structured so that you're playing 1 match a week generally. Mm-hmm. So they'll go over 3 or 4 weeks. There's people that play from all over the world. So don't, if you are a night owl and want to play, there are people that play in the middle of the night on our Discord. So I wake up in the morning all the time and see 6, 7 people looking for games in the middle of the night. So don't come join the Discord, come join the conversation, and just play more games, play on more Armada.
Very good. And guys, the links to the Discord channels are in my description below, and they will be there from now and for the future. And thank you so much, Paul, aka Kelorn, for coming on my channel for this interview. Yes, and it was such a pleasure to meet you.
It was a pleasure to meet you too, Ben. It was great to see you in the channel and be like, oh, I'm sitting in the corner over here drinking beer. I was like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute.
Yep. Yep. It was nice. That first night was really fun, just to have some drinks and talk with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, you take care, and we'll sign off.
Yep. And thank you guys for watching. And until next time, take it easy.